Now we continue with section E. Section E is about implementing the strategies. So again, this is a short sections which evaluate the impact of the strategic choices and the role as the company secretary is to give advice to the senior management and the governing bodies on the appropriate structures and control required for the implementation of strategies. So there are two big themes in here. The first one is organization structure and design, which is important because for implementation, of strategy is a critical phase. Well, you have formulated your strategies. Now you have to translate your strategies into actionable plans, and you have to execute your strategies across the organizations. So it involves aligning of the resources, structures, systems, and people in order to achieve the strategic goal. This phrase bridges the gap between strategic intent and strategic reality. So, I mean, strategy is not about crafting brilliant strategies. It is more about making the strategy work. So implementation ensures that the strategic plans are embedded into your daily operations, embedded into your culture, and embedded into your performance matrices. So without effective implementations, so even the most innovative strategies will fail. So implementation ensures alignment of the visions and missions and enables adaptabilities, accountabilities, and continuous improvement. Well, you can see that in section A, it's about organization structure and design. So this section explores the organizational structure which is influenced by the strategies. So it covers the traditional and emerging structural forms, key elements like specializations, centralizations, and the strategic appropriateness of the different designs. It examines the flexible, boundaryless, and virtual structures that support innovations and responsiveness. So structure will determine how the strategy is executed. Who makes the decisions? And strategy also shapes the structures, especially when you enter the new market or launching a new product. So whenever you see that the company want to expand globally, then you have to think about the structure, organization structure as well. The right structure will enhance efficiency, clarity, and strategic alignment. So if there's a misalignment between strategy and structure, that could lead to confusions, inefficiency, as well as ineffectiveness. So ultimately, the strategy will fail if there's a misalignment. So as usual, we have a quick look at the syllabus first, a very quick overview of the syllabus. Organization structure define how the tasks are divided, coordinated, and supervised. So it's important to understand the nature of the organization structure because the structure will serve the purpose of establishing clear roles and responsibility in order to achieve the strategic goal. So in here we have the definitions and purposes of organization structure. So I mean the good structure will provide a framework for decision making, resource allocations. It ensures the objectives are met and or in a coordinated effort. Using strategies to determine structures. I mean, the strategy will influence the design of organization structures in order to support specific goals. So, for example, a growth strategy may require a more decentralized structure to foster innovations. So, Google, for example, uses a flexible structure to support its innovative driven strategies. So, using structures to determine strategies, because the existing structure can shape the strategic choices, and there may be constraints, or it may enable certain actions. So a rigid hierarchy may limit flexibility in response to market changes. So you have to look at the traditional structure and whether you need to change or not. And then the key elements of organization structure will include specializations, which refers to dividing a task into different roles to increase the efficiency. Departmentalizations groups the task activity into the departments based on functions, product, and geography. Chain of demands outlines the line of authority within the organizations. It ensures clarity in the reporting relationships and the division and the decision making. Span of control refers to the number of coordinates a manager oversees. Centralizations determines whether decision-making authority, where the decision-making authority resides on. Formalizations involve the extent in which the rules and procedures govern the activities. I mean, that's the sort of organization structure. So traditional structure will have simple structures which features minimum hierarchy and often used in small organizations. Functional structures group employees by their functions. So you have the marketing functions, finance functions, which promotes expertise, but can lead to silo thinking. Divisional structures organize units into products, services, or regions. It enhances responsiveness but may duplicate resources. Matrix structures combines functional and divisional lines of authorities, foster collaborations but can lead to confusions. And then we have this multinational and transnational structures. International divisions manage operations in foreign markets separately. They allow focus on local needs, but they may lack integrations. Local subsidiaries operate independently in the host country, and they adapt well to the local conditions, but they may diverge from the corporate strategies. Global product divisions refers to the centralized product management across the market, so ensures consistency. For example, the iPhones, Apple's, they manage the iPhone products globally. Transnational corporations balances the global efficiency with local responsiveness. They integrate operations across the borders for strategic advantages. And then joint ventures. Joint ventures involve partnership between firms to pursue shared goals. Focused project structures are temporarily set up for specific initiatives. They offer flexibilities and innovations, but they lack continuity. So these are some of the multinational transactional structures, as well as other traditional structure forms. Now, the emerging structure forms are more flexible. Of course, there are pros and cons. So structural growth and change refers to the evolving organization designed to meet the strategic needs. Flexible and innovative structures with functional, numerical, and financial flexibility. So functional flexibility allows the employees to perform multiple roles. Numerical flexibilities adjust the workforce size, and financial flexibility manages the cost strategically. And then we have this boundaryless organizations, vertical boundaryless, reduce the hierarchical structures, which promote faster decision-making. Horizontal boundaryless structure eliminate departmental silos. They encourage strong functional collaborations. External boundaryless structure involve partnerships and outsourcing. They extend the capacity beyond the organizations. Geographic boundaryless structures operate across the locations without rigid divisions. Modular structures consist of self-contained units that can be reconfigured. They enhance flexibilities and responsiveness. Outsourcing as a part of the structures, and virtual structures rely on digital communications and the remote teams. So when you compare the different structures, you can use the different models. For example, Handy's structural form. Handy's model categorized organization into 4 types. The power culture, the role culture, task culture, and personal culture. We explained some of this already. Apart from the culture, Handy Shamrock's organization structure also proposed that modern organizations could probably resemble a 3-leaf shamrock. So each of the leaf will represent a different group of workers. So the first leaf will be the core workers. They are full-time permanent staff. They may be highly skilled professional, which is essential to the company's missions. For example, the executives, senior engineers, and the key managers who focuses on strategies, innovations, and continuity. The second leaf will be contractual fringe, who are the freelancers, consultants, and contractors. They're hired for specific projects or expertise. It's flexible but cost effective. For example, you could have IT experts, legal advisors, or marketing consultants. The third leaf will be called the flexible labor force, which are part-time temporary or seasonal workers. Often lower skill roles, but they used to manage fluctuating demand. So this model is actually ahead of time. It actually predicts the rise of this gig economy and outsourcing and the remote work. So that's about the Handy's form. And then we have the strategic appropriateness, which is about whether the structure align with the company's strategies, so ensures coherence and effectiveness. And finally, measure and benchmarking success refers to using the metrics to evaluate the structural performance. So organization structure is an architect that enables strategies to be executed. It determines how the decisions are made, how resources are allocated, and how people collaborate. Then we look at the strategic control and performance management. Strategic management and implementation involves managing risk and applying control mechanisms. So, for example, a company may enter into a new market and they may use risk assessment and compliance check to safeguard objectives. Implementation of strategies have to translate the strategy into actions, and performance and the effective concept will be like taking the analysis perspective, which involves examining performance data to understand the outcome. It supports informed decision making and strategic adjustments. Understanding and measuring effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness measures the extent to which the goals are achieved, while efficiency assesses how economically resources are used. Deciding on what to measure when qualitative data, so we choose the appropriate metrics and timing to do your analysis. Areas to evaluate financial measures. I think these are quite simple. I'll just go through it very quickly. Productivity measures, the efficiency measures, quality measures, innovative measures, customer satisfaction measures, employee engagement measures, which basically measures the morale, motivations, etc., etc. Then we have strategic control concepts and models. Aligned control with strategy enables the performance monitoring and corrective actions to support strategic objectives. Who and what, where and when, the timing and location of control, how and why refers to the method of control. And then we have this HACCP, which stands for Hazard Analysis, Critical Control and Points. So this is a systematic approach to identify, evaluating and controlling hazard in the food production and other industry. Gap analysis basically look at the gap. You compare the current performance with the desired outcome and identify the discrepancies for improvement. ownership and control defines who holds the authority, and control ensures the directions of the strategies. And then we have this balanced scorecard concept. So look at the separate performance result that drive the performance, drive the outcome. We have this European quality framework model, which is the quality management framework. And finally, aligning the scorecard with strategies and structures. So scorecard is quite useful and very often used and asked in the examinations. So you can see that in this section is about strategic control. This ensures the organization stay on the course towards its goal. So performance management involves the feedback loop that guides the adjustment, validate success, and identify risk. So, I mean, both the control and the organizations together enables the executions. So structure helps to execute your strategy, and control means monitor and steer the process. So together they ensure that the strategy is a living and adaptive process. So well-designed structure is important because it empowers the team to act, and control ensures that actions are aligned and refined. So both are dynamic. As strategy evolves, you need to evolve your strategies and structure and control. Both the structure and control need to evolve with time. So let's go back a little bit and take a look at the questions. Again, we look at some of the sample questions and see how this section, the question will be asked in this section. Now we have some example in here. So you can see very clearly they ask you to examine the key organization design. So there's a question on organization design. And this question proposed way in which a balanced scorecard to evaluate the progress. So it's a question about monitoring. So you can see that this question 3 is a full 25 marks question on organization structure and design. So sometimes you'll be asked about a full 25 marks questions. Whereas question 4 is the 10 marks question basically on balanced scorecard as a control method. I mean, for informations, question 4A is a question on section A. So you have a combination of section A and section D together, section E in here. So you have to be aware that section E is seldom a standalone full 25 marks question. So sometimes it will mix with other sections as well in one 25 marks questions. So it will be something you need to discuss as well. So let's take a look at the 2 questions in here. And then we have this question 5 and question 6. Again, you have to make recommendations for the new structure of the business, or how the options could achieve the required increase in the income, that sort of thing. So again, you can see that this is very rarely do we have this full 25 mark questions, but this also integrate with section C, which is on governing bodies, and section E. And this question is a combination of section D, the options, and the strategic development section E as well. So, I mean, you can see that very often in this type of questions, you sometimes will have the mixed questions. Right, so let's do some exercises together and look at this question 3. And you have to go to 2023 November question 3 and look at the case. You have not put the case in here. So just take a look at the case and just give you 1 minute. Okay, as you can see that this questions actually want you to discuss the organizational design. What is your recommendations? I mean, it's important to understand what is the current structures in the organizations. It didn't say too much about the organization design in the question itself, the fact sheet itself. What you need to do is to analyze and deduce what is the structure there, So if you look at the questions, it seems that they have 4 divisions: the lorries, the cars and motorcycles, construction and agricultural vehicles, and defensive vehicles. So there are 4 divisions, and they are located in different cities like Newport, Swindon, Exeter, and Bristol. Now the problem is that because they're located in different manufacturers, is located in different locality. It seems that the company is having a sort of divisional structures. I mean, they're using different divisions, different locations to manufacture the different types of the vehicles. So once you understand this, then you will be able to discuss what can we improve based on this organization design. What's the pros and cons of this type of organizational design, and how could this be improved? Well, as you can see in the marking scheme, in that they suggest you to consider the hybrid organizational structures, that not just having the divisional structure, you can also have this matrix structures as well. Why is that such a recommendation? I think it's very clear from the questions that they don't have this cross-functional integrations. The divisions within this the 4 divisions itself operate in silo, and there's a little collaborations. There's a little bit, very few sharing of the things, and there's some duplications of efforts, etc. So that's why in here they recommend to have this divisional and matrix structure, and in particular, they have to centralize some of the functions, just like finance, HR, IT, compliance, etc., so that's to uh, um, achieve the economy of scale, reduce the cost, etc. So you need to read the case very carefully and give recommendations based on the present the fact of the case. Now, finally, we take a look at another case. It's again, it's an ETI case. Asks you to draw a balanced scorecard. So it's a question on balanced scorecard. Again, it's quite a long passage, factual situations. I just give you 1 minute to look at the case first. Now, this question asks you about the balanced scorecard. I think so. This question in here is asks you about the balanced scorecard. Sorry about this. So it's quite simple. You know, the balanced scorecard has this four perspective: the financial, customer's perspective, internal process perspective, and the learning and growth perspective. Now, in here, you can see that they have the KPIs and the targets and the percentage of the target. You know. Now, my question is that when you read this one, of course, you should be able to state the objective, right? Under the KPI under the balance scorecard, and then you set the KPIs. Now, how do you set this objective in here? I mean, can you make up some numbers yourself? You know, I mean, the problem is that when you want to say increase by 2% or increase by 15%, etc. So how do you justify your percentage? It's not stated very clearly in the in the fact of the case. Now, in order to mention the percentage, I think you can. It's legitimate for you to have a guess of the percentage. Sometimes, maybe as long as you can give a reasonable explanation, that would be very good, right? So you don't need to be exactly the same as what the marking scheme shows in here, right? It shows 2%, 15%, and as long as you make a good guess, I think marks will still be given. Maybe, for example, in here they say that it's about customer satisfaction. It's about 90% score. How do you justify this? Maybe 90% is quite a widely acceptable benchmark in the B2B manufacturing for high-performing firms. So it reflects a strong service quality and reliability, and is important for long-term contract, especially for government procurement. So customer satisfaction is very, very important, uh, but it is achievable. So I mean, in the SMART objective, you can say that this is a achievable objective if you can produce things with good quality. So I mean, 90% satisfaction is not difficult to get. Another example is this project margin grow by 2%. How do you make up this number? But of course, there's no right or wrong answer in here. So it's just a modest but a realistic goal for a manufacturing mature company because they have high capital intensity. So the 2% just represents some incremental gains through innovations and cost efficiency. I mean, for this type of company, there's no need to have aggressive pricing. Another example. Sorry. Another example would be strategic partners. Um, so, I mean, the scorecard recognize that partnership is the key to innovation and market expansion. So basically, they are recommending having about three uh, strategic partners annually. That may not be a bad idea. Mm, uh, right. I mean, both. I mean, the scorecard recognize that the partnership is important. So this number represents a manageable pace for quality collaborations without stretching too much of the resources. Now, as you can see that in here, um, again, in the answer, you're quite legitimate to guess some of the percentage or objective. You can set your SMART objective, but as long as it is reasonable and it's not uh, too exaggerated, then probably um, you will get marks on that. Okay, so we finish this part and we will continue with the last part. Okay, so finally we look at section F, the last section, which is on the strategic change and the strategic management. So there are two main topics in here. The first is the process dynamic. That means what is the mechanics and the context of the strategic change, why it happens, what drives it, and how the organizations can understand and respond. The next will be the people's dynamic. So this section emphasizes on the human side of the strategic change, how leadership, teams, and individual influence and respond to change. So, I mean, as you know by now, strategic management is about aligning the company's directions with its environment. So change is inevitable. So you have to manage the change effectively because you want to maintain or sustain a competitive advantage. You want to navigating disruption and fostering innovations. You want to engage people. You want to minimize resistance, and you want to have an effective change management that can contribute to the long-term strategic process. So together, both the process and the human side will contribute to a comprehensive framework for understanding the dimensions of the strategic change. Now, we look at firstly the first part, which is the process side. So there are two subtopics in here: the cause of and the need to change, and understand the process of change. So this section actually looks at the drivers, the context, and the mechanisms of the change. So we have to understand the process because it will help the leaders to anticipate and diagnose the change before it becomes disruptive. It enables the company to align the strategies with external realities and internal capabilities, and provide tools to design and implement effective change programs. So as usual, we just take a very brief overview of the sections in the syllabus, and then we move on to look at some of the sample questions. Now, firstly, is about the elements of change. You have to understand, you have to it involves grasping of the nature and the implication of change. So you have to recognize the impact of the change on the business. The second element is recognition. So you acknowledge that the change is necessary. Then you start to think about the change. And awareness means that it is the company is being conscious of the external or internal factors promoting the change. And pressure points basically refers to specific areas where stress or urgency for change is needed. A requirement means the formal or informal demands for the change. For example, you have to comply with a new law or regulations. Circumstances of change refers to a number of things. Firstly, surprises. Surprise in here, it really means some unexpected events that can trigger a change. For example, there's a sudden market disruption. Incremental means gradual and continuous change, such as ongoing improvement. Crisis means a change in response to an emergency. For example, like a cybersecurity breach. Or strategic, which means the plan change, which align with the long-term goal. For example, you want to enter into the new market, you need to have a change. And organizational drivers and forces of change basically refers to adaptations, means adjusting to new conditions, shifting to remote work. During the pandemic is an example of adaptations. Reconstructions means reconfiguring the structure or process, such as reorganizing the department for efficiency. Revolution means radical overhaul, like you need the complete change in the leadership or a change in the strategy. And evolution means natural and progressive transformations. Now that you have some basic idea of the causes and needs of the change, now we have to look at the context and the process of the change. There are a number of drivers, internal and external drivers, people that can influence the change are the leaders or the employees, the employee behavior or organizational culture. Technology drives innovations and efficiency. Economic factors like inflations or recessions will have impact on the strategic decision making. And competitions forces the company to innovate. So these are the different drivers for the change. Social basically refers to the trends that shapes the consumer preference. Maybe say that now the consumer like to buy eco-friendly products, so that's a social change. And politics affects the regulations and the market access. And then another drivers will also include IT strategies, entrepreneurship, and innovations. So information technology plays a pivotal role in enabling and shaping the strategic goals. The IT systems support decision making, streamline operations, and enhance customer engagement. E-strategy, intellectual asset, refers to the digital capability and the knowledge asset that support the strategic initiatives. So these will include data analytic, digital branding, and online customer engagement. Entrepreneurship and innovations. Entrepreneurship involves identifying and exploring new opportunities, while innovations refers to creating novel solutions. Now we come to the models. As usual, sometimes you need to apply the models to the questions. Kurt Lewin's model explains the organizational change through 3 stages: unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. So you need to apply these 3 stages sometimes in the problem questions. So unfreezing means you are preparing the company for change by recognizing the need and reducing the resistance. Changing means you implement new behavior, new process, or new structures. And refreezing means you solidify the change and to make it as part of the organizational culture. Cultural change involves modifying the shared belief, behavior, and we have discussed this in the part on culture. Economic and political change, these are the factors that could affect strategic decision making. For example, economic downturn may prompt cost cutting or restructuring, right? And even the COVID-19 has the impact. Stakeholder communication basically refers to managing expectations of the stakeholders so that you gain support for the change. And risk and reputations. Next, we look at the human side. The human side looks at the human and behavioral aspect of managing change. So it could involve leadership style, for example, transformational leadership style or transactional leadership style. So it could influence how change is perceived and enacted. Then we have this change agent and team dynamics, which are also essential for building momentum or sustaining change initiatives. Now the leaders, this is about leadership theory. We don't go into details. You can look at the explanation, what's meant by transformational leadership. Basically, this is a leadership style that inspires or motivates the employees by creating a compelling visions and fostering innovations. So transactional leadership basically refers to the leaders that focuses more on the structured task and the reward system. And use and abuse of power basically means the ethical use of the authority by the leaders. So you're abusing the power can lead to resistance to change and low morale. And then dealing with people basically refers to you have to deal with your employees, and successful change requires empathy, communications, and responsiveness to the employee's concern. Next is identifying the change agent. That means you should select individuals who champion the change and use a team and building momentum. Involves collaboration and shared goal. Sometimes you have cross-functional team that can accelerate change initiatives. Using external leverage. External leverage involves engaging outside expertise, partnerships, or consultants to support the change initiatives. And then we have communications technique. So communication technique can refer to a number of things like storytelling, active listening, and feedback loops. So this all could help to convey visions and reduce resistance. Methods of managing change will include education. You inform stakeholders about the change, and you have training sections for them. Participations means engaging the employees in the process of change. For example, your workshop and brainstorming sections. Facilitations means you support smooth transitions. So change facilitators guide the teams through the uncertainty. And support basically refers to providing resources and emotional backing. Ownership means you encourage accountability, empowering the employees to lead the initiative and build commitment. Negotiations means you resolve conflict and align interest. And forces will impose change through authorities. Maybe you have to mandate new procedures is one of the methods. Manipulations means you subtly influence the behavior. Coercions means you use pressure for compliance. And then we have this levers for strategic change. Time intelligence, you understand when and how fast to implement the change is crucial. Removing presumptions means that you're challenging assumptions that opens the doors to innovations. So for example, in the Kodak case is that they failed to embrace the digital photography, and they are unable to remove this outdated belief. Change of routine basically refers to updating the daily practice, which leads to significant improvement. Change of operations basically means modifying the core process, and change of expected outcome means you redefine the success metrics, which aligns with the company's priorities. Then we look at managing resistance. This is a very often asked topic, and you have to apply some of this method and discuss some of these things in your answer. Right? So explicit and overt resistance. That means there is a visible opposition, such as protest or formal complaint, or there are strikes against some policy changes. That refers to overt resistance. Implicit, subtle, and deferred resistance means that there's a passive non-compliance or delayed reactions. Employees may ignore new procedures or delay the adoptions of the new procedures. Kubler-Ross, the 5 stages of grief. This is a psychological model which outlines the emotional response to change, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But as usual for this type of models, you may need to apply those models. So it's quite easy to explain what is the 5 stages, but you need to apply to your scenario, denial, anger, bargaining, and depressions. Catalog 10 reasons for resistance, which includes fear for the unknown, loss of control, poor communications. So you need to address those concerns through engagement and support in order to reduce resistance. Using emotional intelligence, it means that the leader who recognizes the change, you need to manage the emotions that will foster trust and collaborations. Again, some of these models, some of these theories, and you need to apply them, so you better learn these things by heart. Finally, is managing change effectively. So we have a number of, again, models, and again, you need to apply them in your cases. Mintzberg changing cube, this framework categorized change along 3 dimensions: the scope from narrow to broad, the depth superficial to deep, and speed means from low to fast. So it helps leaders to assess the nature of change and tailor the strategies accordingly. Beer, the 6 steps to effective change, outlines the sequential process for implementing the change. Firstly, you mobilize commitments to change through joint diagnosis of the business problem. Second, you develop shared visions of how to organize and manage competitiveness. Thirdly, you foster consensus for new visions. Fourthly, you spread revitalizations to all departments. Fifthly, you institutionalize the change through formal policies, systems, and structures. And finally, you monitor and adjust strategies in response to the problems. And then we have this Kotler's 8 stages of change. This is one of the most popular model, and yeah, you understand how to apply these 8 stages. The 8 stages are establishing sense of urgency, form a powerful guiding coalitions, creating visions for change, communicate the visions, empowering others to act on the visions, generate small-term wins, consolidate gains, and produce more change, and anchoring new approaches in the culture. So, I mean, this model is quite popular and is widely used due to its clarity and focus on the leadership and communications. So you have to be aware and make sure you revise all of these things, and you will be asked to apply these models in your examinations. Another theories are the 5 factors theories by Pettigrew and Whip. The theory emphasizes on the interplay of 3 core dimensions along with 2 additional factors. The core dimensions are context, content, and process. Context means the internal and external environment influencing the change, such as the market trend, regulations, or internal capabilities. Content refers to specific elements of change, including strategy, structures, or technology. And the process means the method and the step used to implement the change. And then the two other factors are organizational culture, which is shared values, belief and norms, and leadership alignment. So this factor is a bit holistic and flexible, and is quite suitable for a dynamic setting. Developing a change program will involve creating a structured plan and outline the objective, timeline, resources, etc. And then we have this keeping a finger on the pulse, basically refers to continuous monitoring and feedback to ensure that change initiative remain on the track. So I think these are some of the more important things that you need to memorize and study and know how to apply in your examinations, because there's quite a number of models in here. Each are a little bit different. They contribute different insight. For example, the Mintzberg change will offer a diagnostic tools, but they may lack of actionable steps. The 6 steps beers provide a practical roadmap, but they may be rigid in the fast-pacing environment. Quarters X steps, X stages emphasize on the leadership and communications, but they assume a linear progressions. And Pettigrew and Whip's 5 factors theory is comprehensive and adaptable, but they can be challenging to implement due to its abstract nature. Right, so now we have a simple understanding of these topics. Then we can move on to look at some of the typical cases or typical problems in this topic. So now we see that there's a question 2, which is on the change. For example, it says in here that Michael new strategies may not be accepted. So that tells you that the resistance, right? And that people are opposed to this, and you ask to draft a paper, and you have to discuss the reasons why most of the board members might oppose to the new strategies and recommendations on how to successfully manage the change. So there are tips in here that this is a question on the change. And say the question 6 in here. Oh, there's another question in here, which asks you to develop a resilient team culture as a priority. And then, given the work has begun with the team leaders to prepare a paper to discuss the resistance that the senior management may encounter. Again, you look at the word resistance opposed to change, that means it's a section F questions. I mean, section F question usually also usually integrates with other sections. You don't have a standalone 25 marks section F question, which is quite rare. Also, you know. So, well, you look at this when you see change management process, that gives you a hint that this is a section F question. And or the models that we discussed earlier maybe have to be applied, you know. Oh, there's one more here. So propose strategies to engage staff and change and review the organizational culture. So we look at the question in here, question 6. The family asset finance limited case. And in here, it says propose strategies to engage staff to review the organization structure of FAF. Now, I just pause for a moment and just give you 1 minute, and so for you to read the case, and so that you have an understanding of the case before we move on to our discussions. Now, basically, the difficulty is that maybe the main focus of the question is on the quarters X steps change model. How do we know about this? Sorry, not this one. How do we know that this is about a quarters model? This is quite difficult. Once you know about what they want to ask, and it's quite easy because you should have learned about the quarters model before you go to the examination room. But the difficulty is that how do we know that this is a question that focus on quarters? Now, there's some hints in here. They say propose strategies. That means you have to propose a framework. You have to propose a model to guide the actions. Now, engage with the staff. Quarter emphasize building a guiding coalitions, communication vision. So I think quarters model is will be more appropriate. And say review the organizational culture. In here, culture change is a long-term transformation. Again, this is what the quarters model is about. So it's more suited to address. Of course, you can use other models. They also focus on system or technical fixes. But basically, quarters model is more people-centric, and they emphasize on leadership, communications, and cultural shifts. So therefore, because that's about, say, staff cut and all these other things. So I mean, that's why we can use quarters to explain this. Now, of course, you have to apply this. I think they didn't say very clearly step 1, step 2, and step 3 in the answer, but I think you should be able to identify that this is about the quarters model. So it says somewhere open and transparent communications. They use a quarters process and to motivate the Strat and the sense of urgency. So that is establishing a sense of urgency is the quarters step number 1. And then somewhere in here, it says that new training to the full training. And again, this is about step number 5. You empower the employees or broad-based actions. So somewhere in the marketing scheme, you can see these are actually they are discussing the quarters model. For example, we also say run workshops to redefine and reinforce the company's core value. So that's creating a vision for change. So they don't mention it explicitly in here. And boasting reputational damages. That's about generating short-term wins, right? So boasting the recognitions of the effort being made to recover the reputational damage. So that you can think of this as step number 6, generating short-term wins. And then you can rebuild trust, develop its culture, etc., etc. So you anchor the new approach in the culture. So basically, this is the last step number 8 in here. And so you see that even in the marking scheme, they do not explicitly say quarters model. Actually, they are applying the model. So, I mean, for you, it may be even better if you start off with each of the steps one by one, so that to help you to answer this more clearly. Now, one last example that we can look at is another example is to discuss the source of resistance when entering into this change management process that offers the proposals on how to mitigate the difficulties and things like that. So you can see in here that it's a question quite clear about change management, and it's related to resistance, right? And the process and offering proposals, So this is you can structure your answers based on this criteria, right? So where is the resistance, how to solve the problem, and that sort of thing. So you have to understand the old culture and the new culture. So for example, in here, the strategy had not been reviewed. The company suffered after 2012 with the morale getting slow and they getting stagnant, right? So that's the old culture, and then the new management have this participating management styles as a new culture, and then you have a command and control orientated, which is the old culture. So basically, from the facts of the question, they have identified for you things that you can discuss, right? So that's the resistance because of the financial impact. Trust is the resistance. So you can identify the resistance elements in here, right? So it is also say that it's unclear communications. So you have to bring these things into your answer, which is important. So basically, you can say that the old culture, for example, is competence, stagnant, command and control, and there's a new culture which requires more participating, more team-based value, etc., etc. Because they have a new motto, which says we march together, which emphasize on the unity and shared purposes. And then you can bring this together and have a paragraph on the resistance on change. You can mention things about the financial impact on the employees, unclear communications, low trust in the management, and and the surprise at the financial realities, because the team leaders somewhere says that they were shocked to learn that despite the 85 millions in turnover, profits were only 720,000, something like that. So that would undermine confidence in the leadership. So you can discuss the resistance to change and contribute to, and the factors the resistance will lead to disengagement, right? And the company should improve this by better communications. Well, in here it says again, this is a model answer, the marking scheme. They did not mention very clearly about the how to do it, so you have to apply the cultural web that we have discussed earlier in section C. So that's a part of it is the Johnson's cultural web. So we will not look at this in here, but you should still remember the you have to apply this cultural web to the scenario, the stories, ritual, routines, symbols, power structures, organization structure, and all these other things. Now it says very clearly that you have to apply the change. You have to apply the Lewis change, right? Which is the unfreeze, change, and refreezing. So I mean, this is a 3 stages model. As I've said, you need to understand and apply those models in your answers. So unfreezing basically involved preparing the organizations to accept the changes is necessary. So at Castle, unfreezing began with the recognitions of poor morale, stagnant culture, and the declining financial performance. So the SMT's decisions to shift from the command and control style to the participatory management approach with things like we march together, this sort of value statement will signal the start of the unfree state. So you can apply this similarly to the change and refreezing. So as an exercise, you should try to think what should you discuss about the change process and what should you discuss in the refreezing process. And again, in here is mentioned about the 5 stages of grief. Again, you need to apply these 5 stages of grief into the write it down into your answers. For example, denial. I just give one example, denial. So employees may reject the idea that change is necessary or change is possible. Maybe the long-standing staff were accustomed to the old management style and they have dismissed any early signs of transformations. And maybe the We March Together initiative was met with confusions. Some team leaders admitted that they don't understand what they mean. And the online feedback, like Castle, this is a dying business, also suggests disbelief in the company that could really evolve. So this is an example of how you just spend a paragraph, short paragraph, to discuss what is denial, what is anger. So based on the fact of the case, so that makes it difficult because you need to apply those facts to those models. Otherwise, it's not just simply that you recite the meaning of these models, not of these stages. It's not they want. They want to see whether you can apply this to the case. And then finally, you have the quarters model again. So we have established a sense of urgency, etc. The X stages, and you have to explain it one by one. So, for example, you share the financial reality to highlight the need to change. So you establish a sense of urgency by saying that, wow, we have a low profit despite the high turnover, something like that. And then we use the employees' feedback to show the cause of poor communications and low morale, and you shift frame the shift as essential for survival and to have in order to have future competitiveness. So you can see that even though they mention the word in here, they expect you to apply this to the case. Right? You don't just simply write down these things as a result, as the answer. That's not good enough. They want to see something more, for that. All right, I think so far we have very briefly rushed through the syllabus, rushed through some of the typical topics that you have gone through. The last advice is that how should you tackle with your pre-release cases? I mean, uh, basically, you should revise firstly those concepts first, the models that we discuss, the Pesto, the Porter forces, Mintzberg, Pettigrew, Kotler, whatever. So if you look at the case, if they mention something about change, then you have to prepare everything about a change. If it talks about culture, you have identified the culture things in here. So you have to read it over and over again. Make sure you understand the hints given in the question, because you're expected to apply those facts and discuss those facts when you apply the models. So maybe you try as a practice to apply the models to the scenario. For example, as I've said, so you have this past paper, they don't give you the answer, but you have as a practice, as an exercise, you try to write down the answers to these questions, how you would apply Kotler's to this case, so that you get familiarized with how to apply the models in different scenarios. So that's also, if you try to apply, so it also helps you to improve your writing skill. And hopefully I have brought to your attentions about what the examiner expects from the questions. So by looking at the marking scheme, by looking at the question, basically you can see that they are aligned with each other. I mean, if you understand the question, you will have a good structure in the answer, right? Otherwise, you may get a loss as to I don't know what to answer. You know, sometimes they don't make it very clear, right? They don't say very clear, as we see in the early example that they're actually asking about Cortez model. So they didn't say that, you know, very explicitly. So all in all, I think you need to analyze the case before your examination. You have to understand the context. You have to identify the key issues. You have to map out the stakeholders. You go through the syllabus again. We look through. This is the question about. We have to go through about the different sections. Is it about change? Is it about culture? Is there anything in the culture that's suggested? Have they talked about anything about the external and internal environment that you need to discuss? So, I mean, this is a framework, as I said, it's very important that helps you to be more focused. You know, so look at what is the theme um, that will be discussed in your case. You have to spot the strategic themes. Is it about growth? Is it about innovation? Is it about turnaround? Is it about globalization? Or is it about competition? So, I mean, from the facts of the case, you can, when you read it, you can spot what the examiner want to ask about, and then you get yourself more prepared. And then you try to link up with all the models, hypotheses. And nowadays you have the AI, and AI can help you to do a lot of preparation work. You prepare and then outline. Maybe you break down the facts, and you can make it more easy for you to use the facts in the discussions. Or you can prepare this. You can apply these models early, you know, and as a preparation, as an exercise. All right, you can do the pesto analysis given the case. You can do the SWOT analysis and things like that. You know, so given the case, you don't just read the case, but you need to apply the different models to the case, right? So you read the question slowly. A lot of times, um, and then I think about what are the models that you can use, typical models that you can use, right? So I mean, AI can help you to generate practice questions. They can help you to explain the strategic models, and they can help you to summarize some of the things from the case. So this you can have a very quick revision checklist by the uh, use of this new technologies. Um, so I mean, since it's a pre-release questions, the good thing is that you can read it beforehand. But the um, nasty thing will be that they will be more difficult. You have to apply. You have to understand the case thoroughly before you can apply the the facts to the models. So I think what you need is to have more practice of the models. So you're given a case, you should have you should prepare well. There's 2 weeks time. There's no reason why you don't read it and prepare and think about it beforehand, right? Okay, hopefully, I hope that this short webinar can help you to improve your techniques in answering and give you some tips in how to answer the question, how to look at the question, how to look at what the examiner wants. So the final word is good luck to you all. Have a successful examination. Thank you.